Glenn joining us today in our third and final hour, along with Eric Nolan of the Mighty OJs. June, as you know, is Black Music Month. And every day during the month of June, we have a particular artist whose music we share all 3 hours. This is the first time in all the years we've done this where we have two artists that we're alternating between for 3 hours because Eric Nolan of the Mighty OJs and Glenn Jones both join us together in our third and final hour today to talk about their respective musical journeys and the new project that they have together. So a lot of fun today in our third and final hour with Glenn Jones, R&B legend. And what can you say about the Mighty OJs? Eric Nolan, look forward to that conversation today in our third hour. But in this hour, I've been looking forward to this conversation as well. Please be joined by philosopher and journalist Barrett Holmes Pentner on how culture influences U.S. government policy. We'll also talk about his new project called Reconstructionism, and we will go inside his latest text, The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide, and the Erasure of Culture in America. I am pleased to welcome Barrett Holmes Pittner to this program. Barrett, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well, man. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. Good to have you on, and glad we have an hour to unpack a lot that needs to be addressed in this hour regarding your book and a few other issues, again, that I want to get to. Let me start with the book. And I start there in part because I always want to make sure that I and everybody in this audience across the country understand the terminology that we're about to unpack. And this is a word, I have a really, really bright audience, but it's a word I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about. The book is called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide, and the Erasure of Culture in America. So for starters, when we use the term ethnocide, what are we talking about?
So ethnocide is the destruction of a people's culture while keeping the people. And so this word was first coined by Raphael Lemkin, who was a Jewish refugee. He escaped the Holocaust and escaped to the U.S. And when he was in the U.S., he was trying to tell the American government what was happening to Jewish people, and people just didn't seem to believe him. And so he decided that he needed to create a word to define all of this. So he coined the word genocide at that time because Jewish people are a people, a genos, but they also are a people with a distinct culture or a nation, and so that's an ethnos. And so in his original thinking, genocide and ethnocide could be interchangeable. That clearly didn't happen, and the word evolved, and ethnocide became focusing on the culture of the people while the people remain. Because with genocide, if you destroy the people, the culture dies with it. So ethnocide was you're destroying the culture, and the people remained. And so in like the 1970s, they started using it referring to like indigenous people, where you destroy the environment or cultural stuff, and indigenous people are still there, residential school programs, things like that. But in my book, I focus on the transatlantic slave trade because that was an explicit agenda of destroying African culture, but keeping African people to create a chattel slavery system in the Americas. And so ethnocide, that's what it means, and it's a pretty pervasive facet of American life.
To your point about the Atlantic slave trade, given the distinction you made moments ago about ethnocide and genocide, why would the Atlantic slave trade not be considered both?
Well, for a genocide, they're trying to live in the absence of the people. They're trying to create a society without those people being a part of it. They're clearly the transatlantic slave trade. The goal was for black people to be a part of it, but as a perpetually oppressed people. And so the terror, the destruction, the violence was similar. It can be similar with genocide and ethnocide, but the end goal is different. The end goal with ethnocide is that they want to keep the people so that the people are part of the society, and then they would then build an American society with black people as a key part of it. And the destruction of African culture and the continual destruction of black culture is just a means to create that dynamic. If it was a genocide, the goal would be that they would make an America without black people as a part of it. And that clearly wasn't the goal.
Let me ask you right quick. Let me pivot and we'll come back, I promise, but very quickly here. Given the terms that we are talking about now, ethnocide and genocide, President Biden has said that he does not believe that there is genocide happening in Palestine right now. He has said that Israel has not as yet crossed his red line, even as he has said in the last 24 hours. We were discussing this earlier on today's program, in case you missed it. In the last 24 hours, President Biden has said publicly that he believes that Bibi Netanyahu is extending this war for his own personal political reasons. That is, again, a damning indictment of the leader of the Republic of Israel when our president tells us that the only reason why this war has been extended, even as I've called for a ceasefire, it's being extended because Bibi Netanyahu has his own personal political ambitions. He doesn't want to go to jail. He doesn't want to go to trial like Donald Trump, and all of that is awaiting him the minute he's out of office. And so he is advancing this war for his own personal political reasons. Now, we can unpack that 18 different ways. I did some of that in our last hour, so I don't want to necessarily rehash that, but just think about that. Think about the fact that your president is telling you that he knows this guy is continuing this war for his own personal political reasons, and yet he's continuing to send him weapons. He's continuing to allow the murder of innocent women and children in Palestine, even if you don't believe genocide is happening. But when we come forward, I want to ask our guest, philosopher Barrett Holmes Pittner, whether or not he believes the president is right to suggest that there is no genocide happening in Palestine. And we'll talk more about genocide and ethnocide and get more deeply inside this book. It's called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America. His name is Barrett Holmes Pittner. I'm Tavis Smiley. More when we come forward.
Agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley. Can you dig it? Come on!
All right, KBLA delegation, listen up. Not feeling yourself lately? Have your weight loss dreams turned into a weight gain nightmare? Have you been chasing those 20 pounds for 20 years? If so, it's time to check out D-Herbs. D-Herbs Full Body Cleanse is a natural cleansing regimen that can help you lose 20 pounds in 20 days. The Full Body Cleanse will also boost your immune system and improve your digestion. With summer just around the corner, now is the time to finally stop chasing that 20-pound weight loss and propel yourself into a healthier lifestyle. To reboot your system and lose weight, go to dherbs.com right now and order your Full Body Cleanse or call 866-434-3727. Mention Tavis Smiley and get 10% off your order. dherbs.com. Experience healing.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit on the go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
What does it take to take on Alzheimer's? Awareness that nearly 2/3 of those diagnosed are women, including Black women. Dedication to lowering your risk by eating healthy and monitoring blood pressure. And confidence to talk to your healthcare provider about screening and early detection. You have what it takes to take on Alzheimer's. Learn about signs and screening at takeonalz.com. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin, ultra soft on the potty. Less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft. It's our party vibe. She's crushing it, please, so our cheeks feel fine. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
When it comes to the OJs, one could ask the question, what song to play next from a long list of hits? I'm thinking of Prince, my friend Prince, whose music we will play tomorrow in advance of his birthday on Friday, June the 7th. But Prince was fond of going on stage, and in the middle of the show, he'd look at the audience, that little devilish look, lean into the microphone and say, what should I play next? And everybody in the stadium would start yelling out different song titles. He'd let him go for a while. He'd lean in and say, so many hits, so little time. And the same could be true of the OJ. So many hits, so little time. Eric Nolan of the Mighty Mighty OJs joins us today in hour 3, along with R&B legend Glenn Jones. It's going to be a great third hour as we celebrate June as Black Music Month. But this is a great hour already off and running. Our guest in this hour is Barrett Holmes Pittner. His book is called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America. I started this conversation moments ago, in case you've just tuned in, talking about or asking him to explain what we mean when we use the term ethnocide. So for those who may have just tuned in, give me that quick definition once again, Barrett, and I'll jump from there.
Yeah, so ethnocide is the destruction of a people's culture while keeping the people. And a good example would be the transatlantic slave trade, because the goal of that was to destroy African culture but keep African people, to create a chattel slavery system in the Americas, and that's clearly a crime that wasn't named via ethnocide. So that's the inspiration for the title of the book.
So we were talking about ethnocide and genocide, and you were giving us a history lesson. I say all the time, this audience knows, I leave this studio every day smarter than when I came in, thanks to guests like you, who, again, teach me every day as well as they're teaching the audience. So we were talking about the distinct differences between ethnocide and genocide, and I raised the point that President Biden said the other day that no red line for him has been crossed by Israel in Palestine. He made the point that as far as he is concerned, there is no genocide taking place in Palestine. Your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, at this point, you really have to wonder if Biden does even have a red line, or that's just like a facade that he's articulating. Because if he says that they haven't crossed the red line, but also saying that Netanyahu's doing this for his own just saving his political skin, that seems to be that should be a pretty profound red line at that regard. If someone's the head of a state of a country is just indiscriminately killing innocent people to suit their political agenda, that should cross every red line in the book. The idea that he can say that is happening but hasn't crossed his red line is just astonishing and just tragic and sad, and a whole slew of detrimental words. I'd say the concern regarding as to whether it is or isn't genocide, like this is the semantics discussion people want to get into, where they try to act as though a genocide has to look the same way as it looked in another place, like it has to look like it happened in Germany, or it has to look like it happened in Rwanda, or it has to look like how the Ottomans forcefully marched the Armenians across the country. No, it doesn't. They're not going to look the same. The places are different. The resources are different. But the intent is what we're talking about. The intent is to create a place in the absence of a people by getting rid of them via the means at your disposal. And that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. I don't think there's There's not any ambiguity about it. So they get into these just this like horrible semantics conversations where like technically I don't think it met this criteria. It's like that's not what it's even about. Like Lemkin made the word genocide back then because he had to come up with language to explain something that had never people hadn't perceived it happening before. So the idea that there's like a fixed rubric, clearly international law, you have to make like rules and standards and say like, does it adhere to this thing or that thing? I get that. But like, it's really talking about the intent, like, yeah. And the intent's pretty clear. So, yeah. There's nothing but disappointment from the Biden administration regarding all of this.
For the sake of getting your response, Barrett, let me play Joe Biden for just a second here. I am not an old white man, but let me play one. Let me play one on radio for about 30 seconds here. My name is Joe Biden, and I want to say to your guest, Tavis Barrett Holmes Pittner, that when I said that I do not see genocide taking place in Palestine, I meant that. I don't see genocide there. Perhaps there is ethnocide, but there's no genocide. I'm not happy at all about the deaths of these innocent women and children, but I don't see genocide. Perhaps I would grant you ethnocide. And to that, Barrett Holmes Pittner, you'd say what?
That's just absurd, because what we're talking about is, first off, when they came up with the two words of genocide and ethnocide, Bats as an ethnocide got subsumed into genocide, because when you're trying to destroy a people, you destroy the culture first. Like you attack the intellectuals, you attack the places that are like the repository of their art and their culture and history, because those things break people's spirit. And once their spirit's broken, it then becomes easier to do the destructive things. It becomes easier to remove them from their place. And so like seeing cultural destruction doesn't mean that now it's ethnocide and not genocide and it's something lesser or different or whatever. Like we're talking about the end goal here. Like even if it was that the end goal was that the goal is to keep Palestinians in Israel as a perpetual underclass like they did in the Americas with African people, that would still be a criminal offense. Like it's not like it'd be a lesser. We're like, oh, it's okay. This one's, the other one's not okay. They're both equally bad. It's just when we start getting into these semantics conversations, it's like you're just trying to obfuscate reality and make people say what they're seeing with their eyes isn't real. And we need to instead believe your rhetoric or propaganda. And that's just defeats the entire purpose. So what we're seeing right now, clearly, they're preventing people from getting food and resources, and civilian places are getting attacked all the time, and they're claiming that they're accidents. That's clearly an agenda of trying to live in the absence of those people. That's genocide.
Yeah. There are those, I'm working my way inside the pages of your text, The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America. That is the name of the book that we're discussing in this hour. Its author, Barrett Holmes Pittner, is our guest. I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you tuned into our program right about now. And before I get inside the book, there are those in this country, black folk, who have argued that America has moved in ways that speaks to an effort or an attempt to engage in genocide of black people. Not just historically. There are those who make that argument now. And you've heard these arguments. I could run the list if I had the time of all the things that are being done in this country that allow some folk to make the argument that genocide is the end game, the ultimate goal, as it relates to black folk in this country. When you hear those kinds of arguments, you respond how, Barrett?
So I will respond in a couple ways where I think it's pretty clear that it's ethnocide, but at the same time, like when I say ethnocide to somebody, that's normally like the first time they've ever heard of that word. And so when people haven't heard of the word that I think is a more precise depiction of what's happening, and they're using the closest word that they can think of that's actually like known around the world, and people, get it, and they're trying to apply that language, and language of cultural destruction is part of the definition of genocide. I totally understand why they would use that language. And I wouldn't say that there's anything problematic initially with having that approach. But I do think that the word ethnocide is more specific because it's pretty evident that America has always wanted black people to be a part of the society that they created. They just want us to be part of the society without rights and services and denying our humanity and all sorts of stuff. But there's never been an agenda to create an America in the absence of black people. And if they were, so go ahead.
No. Finish your point. I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish your point.
Oh, yeah. So the point was that if it was genocide, they would be trying to create an America absent of black people. And that's clearly not the case.
Right. So I'm again working my way inside the pages of these books. Just want to unpack this title. We've talked about ethnocide. Now I want to talk about the rest of that subtitle, the erasure of culture in America. Then we'll go right inside the book. When I think about the erasure of culture in America, I hear the point that you're making. I've wrestled with the text, and we'll get to that again in a moment. But one could argue that America has done anything but erase black culture. And the argument would go this way. They haven't erased anything, but they've copied and emulated everything. They've erased nothing, but they've emulated everything. You take my point that everything we do in fashion and in music and in sport and in art, I can run the list. Du Bois, the great black intellectual, once asked the question, as you know, Barrett, would America have been America without her Negro people? Would America have been America without her Negro people? And we all know the answer to that question is a resounding no. And I believe that one can answer that question honestly and earnestly. One can unpack that question without casting aspersion on anybody else. But America simply would not be without the grand contributions of black folk. If you take black folk out of the American democratic experiment, it just falls flat. And I don't think you and I would disagree on that. But when you say that there is this attempt to erase culture, our culture in America, and I respond by saying, I'm not sure I buy the erasure argument. I will buy the emulation argument that they want to emulate every single thing we do. You'd respond how?
Well, so first off, the fact that we acknowledge that America wouldn't be America without the contributions of black people reinforces that it's ethnocide because black people are here to be a part of it. Now, the question then becomes, how do we define culture? And this was a question that I had to answer in the book because when you talk about culture, they're always talking about like specific things like art and sports and this. It's all like kind of tangential sideload like crafts that people make. But what I perceive culture to be is a collection of people in a particular place that are making the things they need to survive. That's why the culture in a warm place will be different than the culture in a cold place. Like that, the clothes will be different, the houses will be different, the food will be different, the words they create, all of that will be different because the environment that they're in is different, and they therefore have to make different stuff. And that's a collective endeavor. Once you start bringing division into it, and people are trying to create a culture that lives at the expense of another group of people, then that, those two groups, the group that has the more power, their culture is divided. It's not collective, and it's not about everyone surviving in that place. I'd say it's actually the opposite of culture. And this speaks to like a profound American problem where we have like one group that's doing the opposite of culture, and they're calling it culture. And then there's the action of like collectively creating culture, and we're calling it culture. So now we have like two opposite things, but the same word to describe both. And this creates like a lot of linguistic confusion. So for black people, clearly we're going to make the stuff that we need to survive. And that will be our culture. And a lot of that, and another thing that's also significant about culture is that culture is also metaphysical, where like the spirit of those people, like that's not like a product, a thing that they create, but like the spirit, just like, when African Americans, when we interact, there will be like some spiritual connection, like a comfort that just happens. That's also part of the culture. That's a thing that they also try to destroy throughout the transatlantic slave trade and through chattel slavery, breaking up families, breaking up communities. All that kind of stuff is to break the spirit, that facet of the culture. And so American society has been structured to destroy black culture for like the financial gain of the white oppressors, colonizers dynamic. And that's just ingrained into it.
Hold that thought. When we come forward, we'll talk more about destroying black culture and that as the end and aim of America as we know it. And whether or not you agree with the assessment of Barrett Holmes Pittner. I'll tell you one thing. I love that phrase, linguistic confusion. I've had that a few times in my career and on this program. In fact, some linguistic confusion. I'm not confused today. I understand exactly the argument that Barrett Holmes Pittner is making. He'll continue to make it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thanks for sharing a part of your Wednesday with us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to approve a $17 billion investment deal with Disney World. The New York Sun says the deal will be announced today that could include new additions to the theme park, as well as commitments from Disney to help develop housing for its employees, with Florida promising to maintain the necessary infrastructure for the park. We're now learning that Sean Diddy Combs is selling his stake in his media company, Revolt. Facing multiple lawsuits accusing the African-American rapper of sexual assault, Sean Combs agreed to separate from the company he founded. Revolt began more than a decade ago, meant to be a music industry-focused cable channel promoting black representation. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
As humans, we like having options. One option you might like is speaking with a real person when you call about your credit card. With 24/7 live U.S.-based customer service from Discover, everyone can talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congrats to the Angels and manager Ron Washington. The Angels' second straight victory over San Diego Tuesday night gives the Angels their first series win at home this season. The Angels have been struggling at home with a 9-21 record, the worst in the major leagues. The Dodgers were shut out for the fourth time this season. Pittsburgh needed only one run to get the win. The Dodgers were 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. More drama for WNBA rookie Angel Reese. The Chicago Sky forward suffered her first ejection of the season in last night's game against the New York Liberty. Reese was hit with 2 technicals for protesting a call. Part 1 of Clipped, the mini-series about former Clippers owner Donald Sterling, made its debut last night on Hulu. Lawrence Fishburne plays the part of former Clippers coach Doc Rivers in the 6-episode series. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You give and you give. It's time to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a Samsung Galaxy A14 included with the activation of a Silver Unlimited plan. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah!
Switch to Straight Talk. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Requires in-store activation. Device offer ends 6/9/24. Taxes and fees apply.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you, and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
The song stylings of Glenn Jones, who joins us today in our third and final hour, along with Eric Nolan of the Mighty Mighty OJs. We will continue to celebrate June as Black Music Month when we get to our third and final hour today. But every day during the month of June, we feature the music of a particular artist as we celebrate the artistic genius of black folk musically. We were just saying earlier in this conversation, Barrett Holmes Pittner and I, quoting Du Bois, that America would not have been America without her Negro people. And so in every facet of American life, we have made our mark and left our imprint. And again, I can't imagine the soundtrack of my life without black music artists on it. Hence, the celebration of black music in the month of June. Our guest in this hour is Barrett Holmes Pittner, a philosopher and journalist. His new book is called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America. If you missed the first half hour, check out the podcast of this program when it's posted later today, because you'll want to make sure that you are up to speed on these definitions and the distinct difference between ethnocide and genocide, which we discussed earlier, which we ain't got time to cover again right now. But I don't want you to miss out on that. Speaking of genocide, word has come that last night, Vice President Kamala Harris appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live. So apparently she was here in L.A. last night to appear on Jimmy Kimmel, and the show had to be retaped. They had to refilm the show last night after Vice President Harris was disrupted by peace activists who say they were there to remind the American people that there is no business as usual during a genocide. There's that word again. There is no business as usual during a genocide. And so all the laughs and jokes notwithstanding, they said, we're here to remind you that there's genocide taking place in Palestine, and we're not going to let the president or the vice president rest without being reminded as often as we can of what is happening in that region of the world. So the Jimmy Kimmel Live show had to be taped again last night. We filmed once they got them out of the studio, and they started taping all over again. So if you saw Vice President Harris on Jimmy Kimmel last night, you know what you didn't see. That's the backstory, that the show had to be taped twice to get it on the air. I digress on that for now, as we were again talking earlier in this conversation about ethnocide and genocide. But just before we stepped aside, Barrett Holmes Pittner, you were talking to us about the effort in America to erase and destroy black culture. Two things, and I'll get out of your way. One, tell me more about that. And number two, tell me again how America benefits by erasing our culture. Who wins?
Well, so it's a lose-lose on erasing the culture, but America's perceived it or articulated as if we win, or the white Americans are the dominant force in the society wins by erasing the culture of whoever is considered the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so for example, let's just do chattel slavery as an example for ethnocide and cultural destruction. It's pretty evident that that structure was based on destroying the culture of black people. Families are broken up, African languages destroyed. The only way that you were able, you had to learn English, you had to practice Christianity. Only things that white people gave you are the things that you could do, but the culture you had in Africa was not a thing that you could do. And if you could read or communicate or do stuff that could create culture, then black people could organize, and then they may rebel against the systemic generational oppression that was chattel slavery. So for this society to survive, they had to prevent black people from forming culture. And they did that because they thought it was profitable, because a culturalist group of people could work for them and make them money forever, and you never pay them. And so that's a foundational component. And then so much of America culturally, infrastructure, it was based around normalizing that status quo. And so when it comes to African Americans, just the examples of prosperous black cities where we're creating a cultural haven, and next that city becomes so economically powerful that they feel as though it's a challenge to the white city next door that's supposed to be the dominant one. And next all these white Americans go and destroy that city in a matter of days. Or a black kid goes to a swimming pool, and now that swimming pool, so now they have to destroy this black area. So there's countless examples of black people coming together and making culture that's a whole city, and then that just getting wiped off the map. So there's other examples of black people making art or whatever, and then some white person profits more off of the art than the person who created it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that black person kind of has to start anew and create another art, because that art has become a commodity that doesn't exist to benefit or enrich them or their culture anymore. So then we have to make new culture.
Since June is Black Music Month, and you just offered that brilliant example about ethnocide, how would you then frame Elvis Presley and many other white artists taking black music and making it their own, to your point, making it profitable for the record companies?
Yes, and so I'd say that's just a natural byproduct of ethnocide. So I'm not going to speak as to a clarity of the intent of Elvis or the other white people at the time. I'm sure some of them were very clear that we're going to take this from black people and we're going to profit off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be other white people that just are maybe they're really poor and they grew up around black people and they learned this stuff,
mm-hmm.
and they just did what they knew from being around black people and exposed it to a bunch of white people who had never seen it. And now the white people want to say, wow, this is incredible. We're going to support this white person who's doing the black stuff. And now this becomes Elvis's thing and not the black community of Memphis's thing. And the culture that created that gets forgotten. Mm-hmm. No one thinks about it. It doesn't get the resources, doesn't get the funds to grow. All the money goes towards Elvis. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily Elvis being malicious. That's just the structure of the society being one where they say, we're going to support the white individual's expression and act as though that was just something organically that came from them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a thing that came from the black community. And there you go.
No, it's a long list. Elvis, Pat Boone. I could do this all day long if I had the time. When we come forward, speaking of ethnocide and genocide, I wonder what Barrett Holmes Pittner thinks, or how he thinks the Tulsa Race Massacre fits into either or both of those frames. Last weekend, we commemorated the 103rd anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Ethnocide, genocide, both, you tell me, and he will when we come forward. His name is Barrett Holmes Pittner. His book is called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America, and you are listening to him right now, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone, and should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hi, Tavis Smiley here. We're getting closer to June 18th, and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see for the first time ever a stage full of brilliant black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with Barrett Holmes Pittner, philosopher and journalist. His new book is called The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America. What a fascinating and utterly brilliant conversation this has been. I mentioned the Tulsa Race Massacre. Last weekend, we commemorated the 103rd anniversary. I had a great conversation last week with Viola Ford Fletcher, mother Viola Ford Fletcher. If you missed that conversation, many people reached out to us about that. If you missed it, check out the podcast. But she is the oldest survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, now 110 years old. Just turned 110 last month. Mother Viola Ford Fletcher. An amazing conversation with her that we ran on this program last week in advance of the 103rd commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre last week. And again, that conversation can be heard by checking out our podcast. But when I say Tulsa Race Massacre to you, Barrett Holmes Pittner, ethnocide, genocide, both, you tell me.
So I'd say it's a clear example of ethnocide. Now, I can understand why people would say genocide because of the amount of people that were killed in the massacre. But the goal of these massacres, and Tulsa is not an isolated event, was to remind black people of the place white people wanted them to exist in America. It wasn't to create a movement where black people leave the country and they live in the absence. America exists in the absence of black people. This was to, the phrase that they always use is to know your place type of thing. Like the place wasn't to be on equal footing in a nice, stable community where there are black lawyers and doctors and education. That wasn't the place that was created in America for black people. And so in Tulsa, the Greenwood neighborhood had grown. They had created such a vibrant, strong black culture. The massacre happened to then put back black people in the place that these white Tulsans wanted them to be in. So to me, I view that as ethnocide. And in my book, I actually give a comparison to what happened in 1938 in Germany, Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, where that goal was they destroyed the town to then send Jewish people to the concentration camps and to create genocide, inflict genocide upon them. And so the destruction, the violence mirrors each other. But the end goal was different in both cases. But at the same time, if you look at how Germany remembers Kristallnacht, or even how America does, there's a narrative of remembering that so that it doesn't happen again. America has a pretty clear narrative of trying to not remember Tulsa. Like the black community, we do a very good effort to ensuring that people remember it, but that's not the national narrative. So the narrative in the U.S. is to not remember stuff like Tulsa, not remember all the similar massacres that happened throughout America at the same time in all these places. So that culture is erased. Yeah. And then America can create a narrative that's one in absence of the violence that has been ever present. And when you can have a violent society that's described in the absence of the violence, then you can depict it as something that it's not. It becomes far more appealing. And I think America does that quite a bit.
We had an amazing conversation on this program yesterday with an author, an investigative reporter, and author named Tracy McMillan. Her book is called White Bonus. And she has written, I think, a game-changing sort of book because she has put dollars and cents on what white bonus offers as benefit to white fellow citizens. In other words, what is the cost? What is the value proposition? What's the benefit of white bonus, the benefit of white privilege? If you missed that conversation yesterday, you missed a good one with Tracy McMillan about her new book, White Bonus. When we come forward, we will close this conversation with Barrett Holmes-Pittner about his new book, The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America, by asking him, what is the cost of ethnocide to the nation? That when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hi, Tavis Smiley here, inviting you to join me for a historic conversation featuring an all-star panel of black thinkers about the urgency of now, climate justice. It's all going up Tuesday, June 18th, live on C-SPAN, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific. The nation has never seen a stage full of brilliant black folk talking about the impact of climate change on our community. But we're going to flip the frame Tuesday evening, June 18th, live on C-SPAN.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Barrett Holmes Pittner coming your way right now. I've got about 4 minutes left in this hour. I want to ask him briefly in a moment about his Reconstructionism project. We'll close on that note, but swiftly here, Barrett, what is the cost that America pays for engaging in ethnocide where black folk are concerned?
Well, so I'd say ethnocide, it extends beyond just African Americans. Like where the child slavery was the beginning of the structure, but it applies to anybody that can be considered the other. So the cost would be, say you have let's make a simple analogy. Say you have 4 people in a room and they have to oppress one of those 4 people all the time. Like one of those 4 people can't be equal. The amount of effort that those other 3 have to put forth to oppress that other person, the amount of crazy ideas they have to create to justify oppressing that one person all the time. It's catastrophic. If you flip that and say, what if those 4 people just viewed each other as equals and they work together? Like how much more productive, how much more they would be able to get done, the things they'd be able to accomplish if they viewed the world that way. America's never wanted to do that. We've done the first one, and it's just catastrophic from the inception all the way to the present.
Yeah. Dr. King used to always say that he refused to hate for a litany of reasons, but principally because it took too much energy and too much time. It takes too much energy and too much time to hate. And King laid on that repeatedly in his speeches over the years. So here's my closing question. Tell me, with 2 minutes to go, about your Reconstructionism project.
Real quick, Reconstructionism is an extension of the work to counter ethnocide, where I tried to focus on an era to inspire people where America tried to look at that 4 people in a room and work as equitably as possible. And Reconstruction is that era. And I think culturally we've not learned nearly as much about that era to use it to transform the present, to have Reconstructionist ideas to make America more equitable and just today. And so the focus is to rekindle that spirit of Reconstruction and apply it to all sorts of facets of American life, politics, art, law, everything. And so it's a pretty big project. And, hopefully I'll come on again. I can tell you more about it.
Yeah. In these last 45 seconds, we now live, as you well know, in the most multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic America ever, on the one hand. On the other hand, we are hurtling inexorably toward that day when people of color will outnumber the good white folk in this country. With those two polars, does ethnocide get better or worse in the years to come?
Well, ideally, I'd say it gets worse, as in it'll get less. But the goal is, as people of color become more influential, there needs to be a proactive philosophy and shared language to advocate for the equality and unity we're trying to create, because there has to be a linguistic and philosophical shift, because since the inception, it's been the 4 people in the room and a language and philosophy used to justify oppressing that one person. There has to be a new language, a new philosophy to articulate all 4 of those people in the room working together. And that's something that I don't think we've fully got to, but we have to really pursue that. And my work is about pursuing that.
He is philosopher and journalist Barrett Holmes Pittner. His book is called The Crime Without a Name. ethnocide and the erasure of culture in America. Have been honored to have had him on this program. Barrett, all the best to you, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for sharing a part of your Wednesday with us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to approve a $17 billion investment deal with Disney World. The New York Sun says the deal will be announced today that could include new additions to the theme park, as well as commitments from Disney to help develop housing for its employees, with Florida's cable channel promoting black representation. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network.